The smoke still rose from the destroyed buildings. Captain Jiho Park moved carefully through the rubble, his rifle ready. Behind him, 3 soldiers followed in silence. The Valkyrie outpost had been hit hard during last night's battle. Now it was just broken walls and twisted metal. "Captain, we should move faster," Private Deho whispered. "This place gives me bad feelings." Jiho nodded but kept his pace steady. Their mission was simple. Get in, check for enemy survivors, gather intelligence, and get out. The war between humans and the Valkyrie had been going on for 3 years now. Nobody remembered anymore why it started. Both sides just fought because that was what they did. The outpost was quiet. Too quiet. Jiho had seen many battlefields, and something felt wrong here. His instincts screamed at him to be careful. They moved past a collapsed tower. The metal beams had fallen like broken bones, then he heard it. A small sound, like crying. Jiho raised his fist and his squad stopped. Everyone listened. There it was again. Soft whimpering coming from under a pile of concrete slabs. "Sounds like a wounded Valkyrie," Deho said. "We should keep moving." But Jiho was already walking toward the sound. He knelt beside the rubble and looked through a gap. In the darkness, he saw 2 large eyes staring back at him. They were golden, like all Valkyrie eyes, but these eyes were small. A child's eyes. "Please," a tiny voice said in broken human language. "Help me." Jiho's heart clenched. He had fought Valkyrie soldiers for years. He had seen them as enemies, as aliens, as the reason his friends had died. But this was just a child. Scared and hurt and alone. "Captain, we need to go," another soldier, Corporal Minho, said urgently. Command said no engagement. "We're already behind schedule." Jiho ignored him. He started pulling away the smaller pieces of rubble. The child whimpered again as dust fell on her. "What are you doing?" Minho grabbed his arm. "That's the enemy!" Jiho shook off the hand. "That's a kid." He worked faster now, moving the concrete pieces. His gloves scraped against the rough surfaces. The child was trapped under a heavy beam. Her left leg was pinned, and she had cuts all over her small body. She wore a simple blue dress that was now torn and dirty. "My name is Nari," the child said quietly. "Are you going to kill me?" The question hit Jiho harder than any weapon. He looked into those golden eyes and saw pure fear. This child expected to die because he was human, because they were enemies. "No," Jiho said softly. "I'm going to help you." He examined the beam carefully. It was too heavy to lift alone. He signaled to his squad. They stared at him like he had gone crazy. "Help me move this," Jiho ordered. "Sir, this is insane," Deho protested. "If command finds out..." "That's an order, Private." The soldiers looked at each other. Then slowly they moved forward. Jiho knew he was asking them to risk everything. Their mission. Their careers. Maybe their lives. But he also knew he couldn't leave a child to die alone in the dark. Together, they lifted the beam. Jiho pulled Nari out carefully. She cried out in pain, and he saw her leg was badly injured. He opened his medical kit and started treating her wounds. His hands moved with practiced efficiency. "Clean the cuts. Apply the healing gel. Wrap the bandages." Nari watched him with wide eyes. "Why are you helping me?" "Humans hate Valkyrie." "Not all of us," Jiho said. He gave her water from his canteen. She drank it desperately. "My mother will come back for me," Nari said. "She had to leave during the attack, but she'll come back. She always comes back." Jiho felt a weight in his chest. He looked around at the destroyed outpost. The chances of anyone coming back here soon were small. Both armies had moved on to other battles. This place was forgotten. He made a decision. He couldn't take Nari with him. That would be impossible to explain. But he couldn't leave her to die either. He looked around and spotted a partially intact storage room nearby. The roof was still solid. "Can you walk?" he asked Nari. She tried to stand but fell. Her injured leg couldn't support her weight. Jiho picked her up. She was so light, like holding air. He carried her to the storage room and set her down on some old blankets he found. "You need to stay here," Jiho said. He unpacked his emergency supplies. Food rations. Water bottles. A thermal blanket. Medical supplies. Everything he had. "You're leaving?" Nari's voice was small and scared. "I have to, but I'm going to make sure someone finds you." Jiho pulled out his personal emergency beacon. It was military grade, designed to call for rescue if a soldier was lost. Using it would mean questions he couldn't answer. But he didn't care anymore. He activated the beacon and set it to broadcast on Valkyrie frequencies. Then he placed it in Nari's small hands. "This will call your people. They'll find you soon. Just stay here and stay quiet, okay?" Nari held the beacon like it was the most precious thing in the world. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "Thank you, human. My name is Jiho," he said. "And you're going to be fine." He stood up to leave, but Nari grabbed his hand. "Will I see you again?" Jiho looked down at her. He didn't know how to answer that. They were on opposite sides of a war. The chances of seeing each other again were almost zero. "Maybe," he finally said. "Take care of yourself, Nari." He walked out of the storage room. His squad was waiting outside, their faces showing concern and confusion. "Sir, what you just did?" Minho started. "I know," Jiho cut him off. "Report me if you want. But I couldn't leave a child to die." The soldiers looked at each other. Then Daeho spoke. "We didn't see anything, Captain. You were checking the building for intelligence. That's all." Relief flooded through Jiho. His squad was loyal. They would protect him. They moved out of the outpost quickly. Behind them, the emergency beacon sent its silent signal into the sky. Jiho hoped someone would answer it soon. He hoped Nari would be safe. As they disappeared into the forest, Jiho took one last look back. He had just saved an enemy's child. Command would call it treason if they knew. But Jiho called it being human. He didn't know that this single act of mercy would change everything. He didn't know that the child he saved was the daughter of the most powerful Valkyrin in the galaxy. He didn't know that his life would never be the same. All he knew was that he had done the right thing. 3 weeks had passed since the mission. Jiho stood at attention in the military tribunal room. The walls were gray and cold. 5 officers sat behind a long table, their faces serious and hard. His squad leader, Colonel Taejin, looked at him with disappointment. "Captain Park," the colonel said slowly, "do you understand why you're here?" "Yes, sir," Jiho replied. His voice was steady even though his heart was racing. "Your squad's mission was reconnaissance only. No engagement, no delays. But you spent 47 minutes in that outpost. Your emergency beacon is missing, and you used half your medical supplies." Colonel Taejin leaned forward. "What happened there?" Jiho had prepared for this moment. His squad had kept quiet, but someone had noticed the missing supplies during inspection. Now he had to explain without lying completely. "I found a survivor, sir. A civilian child. Injured and trapped. I provided basic medical aid and left supplies." The room went silent. One of the officers, a stern woman named Major Yunji, spoke up. "A Valkyrin child?" "Yes, ma'am. And you helped it?" Her voice was sharp with disbelief. "Her," Jiho corrected. "She was a child." "Not an it." Major Yunji's face turned red with anger. "Captain Park, that creature was the enemy. You compromised your mission. You wasted military resources. You violated direct orders. For what, a Valkyrin?" Jiho met her eyes. "For a child who was afraid and hurt and alone." "I couldn't leave her to die, ma'am." Another officer shook his head. "This is exactly the kind of weakness that costs us this war. The Valkyrin wouldn't show us the same mercy. Maybe that's why we should be better than them," Jiho said quietly. The tribunal talked among themselves for a long time. Jiho stood and waited. He knew he might lose his rank, maybe even face prison time, but he didn't regret what he had done. Finally, Colonel Taejin spoke again. "Captain Park, your service record is excellent. You've saved countless human lives. Your soldiers respect you. That's the only reason we're not giving you a harsher punishment." He paused. "You are officially reprimanded. This goes on your permanent record. One more mistake like this and you'll face court-martial." "Dismissed." Jiho saluted. "Thank you, sir." As he left the room, he felt both relief and sadness. Relief that he wouldn't face prison. Sadness that saving a child was considered a mistake. The war continued to get worse. Both sides fought harder. More planets burned. More soldiers died. Jiho tried not to think about Nari. He hoped someone had found her. He hoped she was safe with her family. 2 weeks after the tribunal, Jiho's unit was deployed to Hadrian 9. It was a key strategic planet. Whoever controlled it would have a major advantage in the war. The fighting there was brutal. Jiho led his squad through burning cities and destroyed forests. Every day brought new horrors. Every night he saw the faces of fallen soldiers in his dreams. Sometimes he saw golden eyes in the darkness. Sometimes he heard a small voice asking, "Why are you helping me?" The big battle came on a cold morning. Human forces pushed hard against the Valkyrin defensive line. Jiho and his squad were on the front. Explosions shook the ground. Plasma fire lit up the sky like deadly fireworks. Push forward, Jiho shouted to his men. Cover each other. They moved from building to building, fighting hard. The Valkyrin soldiers fought back fiercely. Jiho's squad took heavy fire. Deho went down with a leg wound. Minho dragged him to cover. We're getting surrounded, someone yelled. Jiho looked around quickly. Enemy forces were flanking them on both sides. He made a fast decision. Fall back to the market square. We'll hold there. His squad retreated in order, covering each other. But there were too many Valkyrin soldiers. Too much firepower. The market square became a killing zone. Sir, we need air support, Minho called out. Jiho tried his radio. It was damaged, no signal. They were cut off from the main force. Alone and surrounded, the Valkyrin forces closed in. Jiho and his remaining squad members fought hard, but they were running out of ammunition. Running out of time. A plasma grenade exploded near Jiho. The blast threw him against a wall. His head hit hard. Everything went blurry. He tasted blood in his mouth. Through the smoke, he saw Valkyrin soldiers approaching. Their weapons were pointed at him. He tried to reach for his rifle, but his arm wouldn't move properly. This was it. After 3 years of war, after hundreds of battles, this was how it would end. Jiho felt strangely calm. At least he had saved Nari. At least he had done one purely good thing in this terrible war. Don't kill him, a Valkyrin officer shouted. Take him alive. All of them. Strong hands grabbed Jiho. He tried to fight, but he was too weak. Everything went dark. When he woke up, he was in a Valkyrin transport ship. His hands were bound with energy restraints. His head pounded with pain. Other captured human soldiers sat around him, their faces showing fear and confusion. Where are they taking us? Someone whispered. Jiho didn't answer. He knew what happened to prisoners of war, interrogation prison camps. Some prisoners were never seen again. He had prepared himself for this possibility long ago. The transport flew for hours. Jiho watched through a small window as planets passed by. They were going deep into Valkyrin space, further from human territory than any prisoner should go. Finally, the transport docked. Guards took the prisoners one by one. When they came for Jiho, they separated him from the others. Where are you taking me? Jiho asked. The guards didn't answer. They led him through clean, bright corridors. This wasn't a prison ship. This was something else. Something important. They stopped at a large door. It opened with a soft sound. Inside was a huge room with windows showing the stars. And in the center stood a tall Valkyrin in military uniform, covered with medals and symbols of high rank. The Valkyrin turned to look at Jiho. She was imposing, with sharp features and those distinctive golden eyes. But there was something else in those eyes. Something that made Jiho's breath catch. Recognition. Captain Park, the Valkyrin said in perfect human language. I have been looking for you. Jiho stared at her in confusion. How did she know his name? Why would a high-ranking Valkyrin be looking for him? You don't remember me, of course, she continued. But you saved someone very precious to me. My daughter, Nari. Everything clicked into place. The medals. The authority. The way guards stood at attention around her. This wasn't just any Valkyrin officer. You're her mother, Jiho said quietly. I am Supreme Commander Hyun, she said, leader of all Valkyrin military forces. And yes, Nari is my daughter. The daughter you saved when you could have left her to die. Jiho didn't know what to say. He had saved the child of the enemy's Supreme Commander, the most powerful Valkyrin in the galaxy. His mind raced with questions and fears. Commander Hyun walked closer. She studied him carefully. You expected torture, interrogation, death perhaps, but that is not why you are here. Then why am I here? Jiho asked. Because, Commander Hyun said slowly, I need to understand the human who showed mercy to the enemy's child. I need to understand if there is hope for peace in this war. She gestured to a chair. Sit, Captain Park, we have much to discuss. Jiho sat down, his mind spinning. Nothing made sense anymore. He was a prisoner, but he was being treated like a guest. He had expected death, but instead he was talking with the Supreme Commander herself. Whatever happened next, Jiho knew his life had changed forever. Jiho sat in the chair, his bound hands resting on his lap. Commander Hyun stood by the window looking out at the stars. The silence stretched between them like a bridge neither wanted to cross first. Your emergency beacon saved her life, Commander Hyun finally said. Our recovery teams found her within 2 hours. She was dehydrated and scared, but alive. The medical supplies you left kept her stable. Jiho felt relief wash over him. I'm glad she made it. Hyun turned to face him. Her golden eyes were intense but not hostile. When the medics brought Nari back to me, she told me everything. About the human soldier who freed her from the rubble, who gave her water and bandaged her wounds, who left all his supplies to keep her safe. She paused. Do you know how many years this war has lasted, Captain Park? 3 years, ma'am. 3 years of fighting. 3 years of death. In all that time, do you know how many humans have shown mercy to a Valkyrin? Hyun walked closer. None, 0, until you. I'm sure others would have done the same, Jiho said. No. Hyun's voice was firm. They wouldn't. Just as my soldiers wouldn't show mercy to a human child. We have taught each other to hate. To see each other as things, not people. She sat down across from him. But you saw my daughter as a child first. Not as a Valkyrin. Not as an enemy. As a child who needed help. Jiho met her gaze. Because that's what she was. Hyun was quiet for a moment. Then she pressed a button on her desk. The energy restraints around Jiho's wrists disappeared. You are not a prisoner here, Captain Park. You are a guest. Jiho rubbed his wrists. A guest who was captured in battle? A guest who saved my daughter's life. Hyun leaned back. In Valkyrin culture, we have something called a life debt. When someone saves your child, you owe them everything. Your loyalty, your protection, your honor. I didn't do it for a reward, Jiho said. I know. That makes it even more significant. Hyun pulled up a holographic display. It showed battle reports, strategy maps, casualty numbers. This war is destroying both our peoples. Every day, more soldiers die. More planets burn. And for what? Most of us don't even remember how it started. Jiho looked at the numbers. They were staggering. Hundreds of thousands dead on both sides. Millions of civilians displaced. Entire planets left uninhabitable. I want this war to end, Hyun said quietly. But I cannot show weakness. If I suggest peace, the hardliners in the Valkyrin Council will call me a coward. They will remove me from power. Then someone more ruthless will take my place. The same is true for human leadership, Jiho admitted. Too many people profit from this war. Too many politicians use it to gain power. Hyun nodded. Exactly. Which is why I need help. I need someone who understands both sides. Someone who has fought this war but still has compassion. She looked directly at Jiho. I need you to be my advisor on human affairs. Jiho stared at her in shock. You want me to work for you? With me, not for me. Help me understand how humans think, how they strategize. Help me find a path to peace. That's treason, Jiho said immediately. I'm a human soldier. My loyalty is to humanity. Your loyalty is to doing what's right, Hyun countered. You proved that when you saved Nari. You could have followed your orders. You could have left her to die. But you chose mercy over duty. That was different. That was one child. And how many children die every day in this war? Human and Valkyrin both? Hyun's voice rose with passion. You saved one. Help me save millions, Jiho felt torn. Everything she said made sense. He was tired of fighting, tired of seeing good soldiers die for reasons nobody could explain anymore. But working with the enemy? That was a line he wasn't sure he could cross. I need time to think, he said. Of course. Hyun stood up. You will have comfortable quarters. You can move freely within this section of the ship. No guards, no restraints. Just think about what I've said. She walked toward the door, then stopped. Nari asks about you every day. She wants to meet you again. To thank you properly. I don't need thanks. I know. But she needs to give it. When you're ready, I'll arrange a meeting. Hyun looked back at him. You showed my daughter that not all humans are monsters. Maybe you can show me that peace is possible. Then she left, and Jiho was alone. Guards escorted him to a room that was nicer than any barracks he had ever stayed in. There was a real bed with soft blankets, a private bathroom, a window showing the stars. It felt wrong. He was a prisoner who wasn't treated like a prisoner. Jiho sat on the bed and put his head in his hands. Everything was complicated now. Commander Hyun seemed genuine in wanting peace. But could he trust her? Could he betray his own people, even if it was to save lives? He thought about his squad, about Daiho and Minho. Were they still alive? Had they been captured too? Or had they escaped? He thought about Nari, small and scared under the rubble. She was just a child caught in a war she didn't start. How many more children would die if this continued? Days passed.
Jiho stayed in his room mostly, thinking.
Guards brought him food, which was surprisingly good. They were polite but didn't talk much. He was in a strange limbo, not quite a prisoner, not quite free. On the fourth day, there was a knock on his door. Jiho opened it carefully. A young Valkyran female stood there, wearing simple civilian clothes. Jiho recognized those golden eyes immediately. Nari? She smiled brightly. She was taller now, healthier. Her leg had healed completely. Uncle Jiho! She threw herself at him in a hug. Jiho caught her automatically, stunned by the affection. I can't believe it's really you, Nari said, pulling back to look at him. Mother said you were here, but I had to see for myself. You remember me? Jiho asked, surprised. Of course. You saved my life. You gave me water and made my legs stop hurting. You left me your special rescue device. Her smile faded a little. I was so scared. I thought I was going to die alone. But then you came. Jiho felt emotion swell in his chest. I'm glad you're okay. Nari took his hand. Come with me. I want to show you something. She led him through the corridors. Guards nodded at them but didn't interfere. They reached a large common room with big windows. Inside were paintings and drawings covering the walls. I made these, Nari said proudly. After you saved me, I started drawing. It helped me feel better. Jiho looked at the drawings. Some showed the destroyed outpost. Some showed a small figure trapped under rubble. But most showed a human soldier with kind eyes reaching out to help. This is how I remember you, Nari said, pointing to a drawing of Jiho giving her water, not as a scary enemy, as someone who cared. Jiho felt tears sting his eyes. He had thought of that day as a simple choice. But for Nari, it was everything. Thank you for not leaving me, Nari said quietly. Thank you for seeing me as someone worth saving. You were always worth saving, Jiho said. They spent the afternoon together. Nari showed him more drawings and told him about her life. She loved art and music. She had friends at school. She wanted to be a teacher someday. She was just a normal child with dreams and hopes. When Commander Hyun came to collect Nari later, she saw them sitting together, Nari showing Jiho her favorite drawings. I see you two are getting along, Hyun said with a slight smile. Uncle Jiho is nice, Nari said. Can he come to dinner with us? Hyun looked at Jiho. Would you? Jiho realized something in that moment. He had been thinking of this as a choice between sides, between humans and Valkyran. But it wasn't about sides. It was about people, about children like Nari who deserved to grow up without war. Yes, Jiho said. I'll come to dinner. As they walked together, Jiho made his decision. He would help Commander Hyun, not because he was betraying humanity, but because he was trying to save it. Both species deserved peace. Both deserved a chance to see each other as people, not monsters. It would be dangerous. Many would call him a traitor. But Jiho had already proven he would do what was right, even when it was hard. This was just the next step. The weeks that followed changed everything Jiho thought he knew about the war. He had expected to be interrogated about military secrets. Instead, Commander Hyun asked him about human culture, about music and art, about what made humans laugh or cry, about their hopes and fears. Understanding leads to empathy, Hyun explained one day as they worked in her strategy room. And empathy is the first step toward peace. Jiho taught her about human history, about the wars humans had fought among themselves and how they eventually found peace, about the philosophers and leaders who chose dialogue over violence. In return, Hyun taught him about the Valkyran. Their culture valued family above all else. They believed in honor and loyalty. They weren't so different from humans, really. They loved their children. They mourned their dead. They wanted safety and prosperity. We were told Valkyran were monsters, Jiho said one afternoon, that you had no emotions, that you only understood violence. Hyun looked sad. We were told the same about humans, that you were cruel and greedy, that you wanted to destroy us. Someone wanted us to believe these lies, Jiho said. Yes, because hate is easier than peace. Fear is easier than understanding. Nari visited Jiho almost every day. She brought her drawings and told him stories about school. Sometimes she asked him to tell her about Earth, about oceans and mountains and the animals there. Is it true humans have creatures called dogs? Nari asked one day, her eyes wide with curiosity. Yes, they're loyal companions. They love their humans unconditionally. We have something similar. We call them Calaris. They're like your dogs but bigger, and they can change colors based on their mood. Nari smiled. Maybe someday humans and Valkyrin can share their pets. Maybe, Jiho said, though he doubted it would happen in his lifetime. One evening, as Jiho was studying peace treaties from Earth's history, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in the corridors. Jiho heard shouting and running footsteps. Commander Hyun burst into his room. "Come with me now." They ran through the corridors. Valkyrin soldiers rushed past them, heading toward the docking bays. Hyun led Jiho to a secure command center. "What's happening?" Jiho asked. "Terrorist attack on the civilian station near Proxima 4. Hyun pulled up holographic displays showing live footage. Human extremists. They're targeting Valkyrin civilians. Jiho watched in horror as the footage showed explosions ripping through a shopping district, families running in panic, children crying, bodies on the ground. How many casualties? Hyun asked her officers. At least 200 dead, hundreds more injured, both Valkyrin and human civilians. Jiho felt sick. There were humans there too? The station is a mixed colony, an officer explained. Both species live there, trade together, some even have friendships. The extremists don't care, Hyun said bitterly. They want to keep the war going. Peace threatens their power. Another screen showed a different scene, a Valkyrin military outpost under attack, this time by Valkyrin extremists targeting Valkyrin soldiers who had spoken in favor of ceasefire talks. It's happening on both sides, Jiho realized. Hardliners on both sides are trying to stop any peace efforts. Hyun nodded grimly. Every time we get close to talk, something like this happens. Fear spreads. Anger rises. Peace becomes impossible. They watched the news feeds for hours. The death toll kept rising. Political leaders on both sides condemned the attacks but also used them to call for more military action. The cycle continued. This is insane, Jiho said. Can't they see that more violence only creates more violence? Fear makes people irrational, Hyun said quietly. And some people know exactly how to use that fear for their own purposes. Nari came to the command center, tears streaming down her face. Mother, I saw the news. All those people. The children. Hyun held her daughter close. I know, sweetheart. I know. Jiho watched them and felt his resolve harden. This had to stop. Children on both sides were growing up in fear and hate. How many more would die before someone finally said enough? We need to try harder, Jiho said. We need to find a way to peace no matter what the extremists do. Hyun looked at him over Nari's head. Are you saying you'll help me? Yes, officially. I'll be your advisor on human affairs. I'll help you draft a real peace proposal. They'll call you a traitor. Let them. I'd rather be a living traitor than a dead hero in a pointless war. Over the following weeks, Jiho and Hyun worked closely together. They studied every failed peace attempt from the past 3 years. They identified what went wrong and how to avoid those mistakes. The problem is trust, Jiho explained. Neither side believes the other will honor any agreement. So we need guarantees, oversight, neutral parties to monitor compliance. Hyun made notes on her datapad. They worked late into the nights. Sometimes Nari would fall asleep on the couch in Hyun's office, curled up with a blanket. Jiho would carry her to her room while Hyun continued working. You're good with her, Hyun said one night after Jiho returned. She's a good kid. She loves you, you know. She calls you Uncle Jiho to everyone. Her teachers, her friends. She's very proud that you saved her. Jiho felt warmth in his chest. I care about her too. Hyun smiled softly. I see that. You know, before I met you, I thought I understood humans. I studied your military tactics, your weapons, your strategies, but I never understood your hearts. And now I see that you're not so different from us. You love your children. You want peace. You're willing to sacrifice for what you believe in. She paused. I also see that some humans, like some Valkyrin, are willing to sacrifice everything for war. They continued working on the peace framework. It included immediate ceasefire, prisoner exchanges, demilitarized zones, and joint oversight committees. Most importantly, it addressed the root causes of the war, territorial disputes and resource allocation. This could work, Jiho said, reviewing their proposal. If both sides are willing to try, that's the big question, isn't it? Hyun looked tired but hopeful. Whether they're willing. She arranged a secret meeting with moderate leaders from both sides. Human diplomats who wanted peace, Valkyrin council members who saw the war as unsustainable, They met in a neutral station under heavy security. Jiho presented the human perspective. He talked about the soldiers tired of fighting, the civilians tired of losing loved ones, the growing belief that the war served only the powerful few, not the people. Hyun presented the Valkyran perspective. It was remarkably similar. Soldiers wanted to go home. Parents wanted their children safe. Regular people just wanted to live their lives. The proposal you've created is ambitious, one human diplomat said, but the timeline might be too aggressive. Every day we delay, more people die, Hyun replied. We must act with urgency. A Valkyran council member spoke up. The greatest challenge will be selling this to our respective populations. Years of propaganda have taught them to hate each other. Then we change the narrative, Jiho said. We show them that peace is not weakness. That ending a pointless war takes more courage than continuing it. The meeting lasted for hours. There were arguments and disagreements, but slowly a consensus began to form. The proposal was refined. Timelines were adjusted. Guarantees were strengthened. I think we have something workable, the lead human diplomat finally said. I'll present this to the Peace Committee. And I'll present it to the Valkyran High Council, Hyun added. As the meeting ended, Jiho felt hope for the first time in years. Real hope that the war might actually end. That night, he stood by the window in his quarters looking at the stars. Somewhere out there, his old squad was probably fighting. His human comrades still saw him as their captain, not knowing he was working with the enemy. Would they understand when they learned the truth? Would they forgive him? Nari came to find him. Uncle Jiho? Mother said the meeting went well. It did. Does that mean the war will end? Jiho knelt down to her level. Maybe. We're trying very hard to make it end. Nari hugged him tightly. I hope it works. I don't want any more children to be scared like I was. Jiho held her close. That's why we're doing this. For you and all the other children. As he looked at Nari's hopeful face, Jiho knew he was doing the right thing. Whatever the cost, whatever people called him, he was fighting for something that mattered. The Peace Summit was scheduled for neutral ground, a space station called Haven Point, built specifically for diplomatic meetings. It orbited a small moon that belonged to neither humans nor Valkyran. Jiho stood in the conference preparation room, adjusting his civilian clothes. Commander Hyun had offered him a military uniform, but he refused. He represented peace now, not war. You're nervous, Hyun observed. She wore her full military dress, medals gleaming on her chest, aren't you? Jiho asked, terrified. But we must not show it. Fear is what our enemies want, she was right. The extremists on both sides had been active lately. More attacks. More propaganda. They knew peace talks were coming and were trying to stop them. Nari appeared in the doorway wearing a beautiful blue dress. Do I look okay? You look perfect, Hyun said warmly. But you know you don't have to come. This might be dangerous. I want to be there, Nari said firmly. Uncle Jiho saved me because he wanted peace. I want to support that. The summit hall was impressive. Representatives from both species sat on opposite sides of a long table. The human delegation included military leaders, politicians, and diplomats. The Valkyran delegation was similarly composed. Jiho sat beside Hyun. He could feel hostile eyes on him from the human side. They knew who he was. Captain Park, the prisoner who now advised the enemy. Some would call him a collaborator. Others a traitor. The human chief diplomat, Ambassador Jin Seo, opened the meeting. We gather here today to discuss the possibility of peace. After 3 years of war, both sides have suffered greatly. It's time to ask ourselves if continued conflict serves anyone's interests. A Valkyran council member responded. We agree. The Valkyran people are tired of war. We seek a just and lasting peace. For the first hour, things went smoothly. Both sides presented their positions. The peace framework that Jiho and Hyun had developed was discussed. There were disagreements, but they were respectful. Then the real negotiations began. The demilitarized zones are acceptable, a human general said. But we need verification procedures. How can we trust the Valkyran won't use the peace to rebuild their forces? The same question applies to humans, a Valkyran military commander countered. Trust must be mutual. That's why we propose joint monitoring stations, Jiho spoke up. Mixed crews of both species watching the borders together. Neither side can cheat without the other knowing. The room fell silent. Some stared at Jiho with surprise, others with respect. A few with open hostility. Ambassador Jin Seo nodded slowly. That's actually a good idea. Captain Park, your perspective is valuable here. But not everyone agreed. A human admiral named Sangwoo stood up, his face red with anger. Why are we listening to a traitor? This man has been living with the enemy for months. How do we know he hasn't been brainwashed? Admiral Sangwoo, Hyun said calmly. Captain Park is here because he understands both sides. That makes him uniquely qualified to help us find common ground. Or uniquely qualified to deceive us, Sangwoo shot back. The tension in the room rose. Jiho stood up to respond, but Hyun put a gentle hand on his arm, signaling him to sit. Admiral, your concerns are noted, Ambassador Jin Seo said diplomatically. But we're here to discuss peace, not question each other's motives. Let's continue. The negotiations went on for hours. They discussed prisoner exchanges, reparations, territorial boundaries, and resource sharing. Progress was slow but steady. During a break, Jiho stepped out onto an observation deck. The stars looked peaceful from here. It was easy to forget that those stars witnessed countless battles. You're doing well, a voice said. It was Ambassador Jinseo. I know this isn't easy for you. It's not, Jiho admitted. But it's necessary. I've read your file, Captain. You were a good soldier. You saved many human lives. That's why I'm willing to listen to you now. Jinseo paused. But be careful. There are people on both sides who don't want peace. They'll try to stop this. I know. No, I don't think you do. These people have power. They have resources. And they're desperate. Jinseo looked concerned. Watch your back. The warning made Jiho uneasy, but he had no time to dwell on it. The afternoon session was about to begin. This session focused on the timeline for peace implementation. It was complex and technical. Jiho found himself getting tired from the constant negotiations. Then Nari brought him tea. She smiled at him and whispered, You're doing great, Uncle Jiho. Mother is proud of you. The simple encouragement helped. Jiho returned to the negotiations with renewed energy. By evening, they had made significant progress. A preliminary agreement was taking shape. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. I propose we sign a ceasefire agreement tomorrow, Hyun said. Both sides commit to stopping all military operations while we finalize the peace treaty. The human delegation consulted among themselves. Finally, Ambassador Jinseo nodded. We agree. Tomorrow we'll sign the ceasefire. The room erupted in cautious applause. It wasn't peace yet, but it was the first real step toward it. That night, there was a formal dinner. Human and Valkyran delegates mingled carefully. The atmosphere was still tense, but there were moments of genuine connection. A human officer and a Valkyran commander discovered they both loved classical music. A human diplomat and a Valkyran council member shared photos of their children. Jiho watched it all with hope. This was what peace looked like. Not grand declarations, but small human connections. He was talking with Nari about her latest drawings when he noticed something odd. Admiral Sangwoo was leaving the dining hall quickly, looking around nervously. A few minutes later, 2 Valkyran military hardliners also left, heading in different directions. Jiho's soldier instincts kicked in. Something felt wrong. He found Hyun and pulled her aside. I think something's happening. Some of the hardliners just left looking suspicious. Hyun frowned. I'll alert security. But before she could, the signing ceremony began. Everyone moved to the main hall where the ceasefire agreement would be signed. Cameras were set up. Reporters from both species waited to broadcast this historic moment. Ambassador Jinseo and Commander Hyun stood at a table, preparing to sign the document. Jiho stood a few feet behind Hyun, watching the crowd. That's when he saw it. A slight movement near the back of the room. Someone reaching into their coat. Time seemed to slow down. Jiho saw the weapon. A plasma pistol, hidden but now being raised. The barrel pointed directly at Commander Hyun. He didn't think. He just moved. Jiho threw himself in front of Hyun just as the weapon fired. The plasma bolt hit him square in the chest. Pain exploded through his body like fire. He heard screaming. Saw Hyun's shocked face. Saw Nari crying. Then everything went black. When consciousness returned, it came in pieces. Bright lights. Voices shouting in medical terms. Pain, so much pain. Someone holding his hand. A small voice crying, Don't die, Uncle Jiho, please don't die. Jiho tried to open his eyes. Nari's tear-stained face came into focus. Behind her, he saw Hyun, her expression fierce and determined. Stay with us, Hyun commanded. That's an order, Captain. Medical equipment surrounded him. Valkyran doctors worked frantically. Their technology was more advanced than human medicine. If anyone could save him, they could. The assassin? Jiho managed to whisper. Captured. Human extremist. Part of a larger conspiracy. Hyun's voice was tight with anger. They wanted to kill me and blame the humans. Restart the war. Did it work? No, because you saved me. Again. Hyun squeezed his hand. Now let the doctors work. The surgery took hours. The plasma bolt had burned through his chest, damaging vital organs. But Valkyran medical technology worked miracles. They repaired the damage cell by cell. When Jiho finally woke up properly, 3 days had passed. He was in a medical bay. Nari was asleep in a chair beside his bed, holding his hand. She had apparently refused to leave. Hyun entered quietly. She looked exhausted but relieved. You're awake. Apparently. Jiho's voice was rough. What happened? The ceasefire? Postponed but not cancelled. The assassination attempt was traced back to conspirators on both sides. Human and Valkyran extremists working together to stop peace. Hyun sat down. Your sacrifice proved something important. It showed that peace is worth dying for. I didn't think. I just acted. You saved my life, Jiho. You took a plasma bolt meant for me. Why? Jiho looked at sleeping Nari. Because she needs her mother. Because the galaxy needs you. Because peace is more important than one human soldier. Hyun's eyes glistened with emotion. The investigation revealed more. There are corrupt officials on both sides profiting from the war. Arms dealers, politicians, military leaders. They've been manipulating events to keep the conflict going. What happens now? Now we expose them all. Human and Valkyran authorities are cooperating for the first time. The peace talks will continue with even more support now. Hyun smiled slightly. You've become a symbol, Jiho. The human who saved the enemy leader twice. I just did what was right. I know. That's what makes it so powerful. But there was a shadow in Hyun's expression. Jiho saw it and understood. I can't go home, can I? He asked quietly. Hyun shook her head. The extremists still have supporters. They've labeled you a traitor. If you return to human space, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Jiho had known this might happen. He had sacrificed his old life for peace. Now he was a man without a home, trusted by neither side fully, hated by extremists on both sides. But as he looked at Jiho, recovered slowly. The Valkyran medical technology had saved his life, but the plasma bolt had done serious damage. He spent weeks in the medical bay, getting stronger each day. Nari visited every afternoon after school, bringing drawings and stories. One evening, as Jiho was finally able to walk short distances, a message came through his private terminal. The encryption was military grade. Human military. Captain Park, this is Commander Kyungsu, Human Intelligence Division. We need to talk. Reply on this secure channel. Jiho stared at the message. His first contact with human command since his capture. He could ignore it, delete it. But curiosity got the better of him. He typed a response. I'm listening. The reply came within minutes. We know what you've been doing. Working with Commander Hyun, the peace talks, the assassination attempt. We have an extraction team ready. They can get you out of Valkyran space within 48 hours. Jiho's heart raced. Extraction, going home. Seeing Earth again, seeing his own people. Why now? He typed. Because you're still a human soldier. Still one of us. You saved that Valkyran commander's life, which bought you some goodwill even among the hardliners. But that goodwill won't last. Come home before it's too late. Jiho closed his eyes. Home. The word pulled at something deep inside him. He had been away from human space for months now. Living among aliens. Working with the enemy. What about the peace talks? He asked. The talks will continue with or without you. You've done your part. Now come home. It sounded so simple, so reasonable. Just say yes and go home. But Jiho thought about everything he had learned. About Hyun's genuine desire for peace. About Nari and the millions of children like her who deserve to grow up without war. About the conspirators who wanted to keep the conflict going. I need time to think, he typed. You have 24 hours. After that, the extraction window closes. Think carefully, Captain. This might be your only chance. The message ended. Jiho sat in silence, his mind racing. The next day, he was cleared to leave the medical bay. Hyun had given him quarters near her own. As he walked through the corridors, Valkyran crew members nodded respectfully. Some even smiled. They knew he had saved their commander. Jiho found Hyun in her office reviewing reports. She looked up when he entered. "You're out of medical. Good. How do you feel?" "Like I got hit by a plasma bolt," Jiho said with a slight smile. Hyun smiled back. "Fair enough. What brings you here?" Jiho sat down. "I was contacted by human intelligence. They offered extraction. A way home." Hyun's expression became unreadable. "I see. They said I've done enough. That the peace talks can continue without me. They're right. The talks are progressing well. Both sides are committed now, especially after the assassination conspiracy was exposed. You don't need to stay." Jiho studied her face. "You want me to go?" "I want you to be safe and happy. If that means returning to your people, then yes." Hyun put down her datapad. "You've sacrificed too much already, Jiho. Your career, your reputation, almost your life. You don't owe us anything more. What about you? What about Nari?" Hyun's mask cracked slightly. "We'll miss you, terribly, but we'll understand." Jiho leaned back. "What if I don't want to go? Then you're welcome to stay. But you need to understand what that means. You'll be in exile, labeled a traitor by hardline humans. You'll never be able to return to Earth or human colonies. Your family, your friends, you'll lose them all." "I know. Then why would you even consider staying?" Jiho thought about how to explain it. "When I saved Nari, I didn't think about consequences. I just saw a child who needed help. When I took that plasma bolt for you, I didn't think about consequences. I just saw someone worth saving. Maybe I'm not good at thinking about consequences. Or maybe you're very good at seeing what really matters," Hyun said softly. "The peace process needs someone who understands both sides. Someone both species can trust, even grudgingly. That's me now. If I leave, I'm just running away from something I helped start." Hyun shook her head. "You've already given enough. Have I? The ceasefire agreement hasn't been signed yet. The full peace treaty is still being negotiated. There are still people on both sides trying to sabotage it. The work isn't done. There are others who can do this work. Maybe, but they didn't save Nari. They didn't take a plasma bolt meant for you. I have credibility that others don't. I can say things that others can't. I'm useful here." Hyun stood up and walked to the window. "You're talking about logistics and usefulness. But what about you, Jiho? What do you want?" That was the real question, wasn't it? What did he want? Jiho thought about Earth, about his old squad, about beer and baseball and all the things he had grown up with. But he also thought about the work he was doing here, about Nari's smile when she showed him her drawings, about the satisfaction of knowing he was helping to end a pointless war. "I want to see this through," he finally said. "I want to help build a real peace. Not because I'm useful, but because I care." Hyun turned to look at him. "You care about Valkyrin? About us? I care about stopping children from dying. Human or Valkyrin, it doesn't matter. I care about Nari growing up in a peaceful galaxy. I care about him." He paused. "I care about you and Nari. You're family to me now." Something shifted in Hyun's expression. "Family?
Yes, I know it's strange.
We were enemies. But you've become important to me. Both of you." Hyun sat down again, looking at him with an intensity that made Jiho nervous. "Jiho, do you understand what you're saying? In Valkyrin culture, family bonds are sacred. They're not casual. I'm not being casual. I mean it. Then you should also know that family bonds come with obligations, with expectations, with ties that last a lifetime. I understand. Do you? Because once you declare us family, there's no going back. You become part of our clan, part of our lives, forever." Jiho met her gaze steadily. "I'm not going back to Earth. I'm staying here. With you and Nari. If that makes me part of your family, then good. Because you're already part of mine." Hyun was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood and walked to Jiho. She placed her hand on his shoulder in a traditional Valkyrin gesture of acceptance. "Then welcome to our family, Jiho Park. May your path be our path. May your struggles be our struggles. May your triumphs be our triumphs." Jiho felt emotion swell in his chest. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. You just tied yourself to a Valkyrin commander and her daughter. Your life just got much more complicated." "It was already complicated," Hyun laughed. It was the first time Jiho had heard her really laugh. The sound was warm and genuine. That evening, Jiho sent his reply to human intelligence. "Thank you for the offer, but I'm staying. The work here isn't done and I intend to finish it. I'm still a human. I'm still loyal to humanity, but I'm also fighting for something bigger than one species. I'm fighting for peace. I hope you can understand that." He didn't expect a response and he didn't get one. He had made his choice. He was in exile now, a man without a country, but he wasn't alone. Nari found him later on the observation deck. Mother told me you're staying. I am. Good. She hugged him tightly. I didn't want you to go. Is that selfish? No, it's human. Or Valkyrin. Same thing, really. Nari pulled back and looked at him seriously. You're part of our family now. Mother explained it to me. That means you're like a father to me. The words hit Jiho hard. He had never thought about having children. The war had made such thoughts impossible. But now, looking at Nari's hopeful face, he realized he had become something like a parent to her. I'm honored, he said honestly. Will you teach me more about Earth? About humans? I want to understand your people better. I will. And will you teach me about Valkyrin culture? Yes, we can learn together. Nari smiled brightly. This is what peace looks like, isn't it? Learning about each other. Yes, exactly that. As they stood together watching the stars, Jiho felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. He had given up his old life. He had been labeled a traitor by some of his own people. He would never see Earth again, but he had gained something too. A purpose, a family, a chance to make a real difference. The next week, evidence from the investigation was broadcast to both human and Valkyrin populations. The conspiracy was laid bare. Arms dealers who profited from the war, politicians who used fear to gain power, military officers who advanced their careers through conflict. Public opinion shifted dramatically. Suddenly, the peace talks had overwhelming support. People on both sides realized they had been manipulated. They were angry and they wanted change. The conspirators were arrested. Human and Valkyrin authorities worked together for the first time. Justice was served equally to both species. And Jiho stood beside Commander Hyun as they presented the final peace framework to both governments. Not as prisoner and captor, not as enemies, but as partners working toward the same goal. The final ceasefire agreement was signed 1 month later. It was just the first step. The full peace treaty would take years to finalize, but the war was over. The killing had stopped. Jiho had made his choice. He had chosen peace over comfort, family over country, the future over the past, and he had no regrets. 6 months after the ceasefire agreement, the galaxy looked different. Jiho stood on the observation deck of Station Unity, watching ships dock. Human vessels and Valkyrin vessels side by side. Some carried diplomats. Others carried trade goods. A few carried families, mixed species families starting new lives together. Station Unity had been built specifically for this purpose. A neutral place where both species could meet, trade, and learn about each other. It orbited a beautiful planet with blue oceans and green forests, unclaimed by either side. Jiho had helped design the station. He understood what both species needed. Space for privacy, but also space for connection. Human-style restaurants next to Valkyrin meditation gardens. Schools where children of both species could learn together. Uncle Jiho, Nari's voice called out. She ran toward him, her school bag bouncing on her back. She was taller now, growing so fast. Guess what? I made a new friend today. Her name is Sora. She's human. That's wonderful, Jiho said, genuinely happy. This was exactly what peace looked like. Children making friends across species lines. She's teaching me a human game called chess, and I'm teaching her Caleris writing. She's never seen a Caleris before. Can you believe it? Chess is a good game. I'll teach you some strategies if you want. Really? Sora said her father is a diplomat. Maybe you know him? Jiho smiled. Maybe. The diplomatic community isn't that large yet. Nari hugged him quickly. I have to go. Mother is speaking at the assembly hall in an hour. Are you coming? I'll be there. Nari ran off, full of energy and hope. Jiho watched her go, feeling proud. She had grown into a confident young person. The scared child trapped under rubble seemed like a distant memory now. Jiho's quarters on the station were modest but comfortable. He had built a life here. He worked as an independent mediator, helping resolve disputes between human and Valkyrin citizens. His unique perspective made him valuable. Both sides trusted him because he had sacrificed for both sides. It wasn't always easy. There were still people who called him a traitor. There were death threats occasionally, but there were also messages of thanks. From soldiers who got to go home because the war ended. From parents whose children were now safe. from people who just wanted to say that his sacrifice mattered. The assembly hall was packed when Jiho arrived. Commander Hyun, though she had stepped down from military command and now led the Peace Initiative Council, was giving a speech about the progress made in the past 6 months. Jiho found a seat in the back. He preferred not to be the center of attention, but Hyun saw him and smiled briefly before continuing her speech. 6 months ago, many said peace was impossible, Hyun said to the crowd. They said humans and Valkyrin were too different, that our hatred ran too deep, that only total victory would end the war. She paused. They were wrong, the crowd applauded. Both humans and Valkyrin. Peace was possible because individuals chose mercy over revenge, because people looked past their fear and saw each other as equals, because someone, she looked directly at Jiho, showed us that one act of kindness can change everything. More applause. Jiho felt uncomfortable with the attention, but he understood why Hyun did this. She was building a narrative of peace, making heroes out of people who chose compassion. It was smart leadership. After the speech, there was a reception. Jiho was talking with a group of human merchants when Hyun approached. "Can I steal you for a moment?" she asked. They walked to a private balcony overlooking the docking bays. The stars stretched out endlessly. "You did well with the Thompson dispute," Hyun said. "Both sides accepted your mediation. It was a simple misunderstanding. Just needed someone to translate the actual issues. That's what you always say. But it's more than translation. It's empathy, understanding both perspectives." Hyun looked at him. "You're good at this, Jiho." "I had a good teacher." They stood in comfortable silence. Over the months, their relationship had deepened. What started as prisoner and captor, then became colleagues, had grown into something more complex. They were family, yes, but there was also respect, trust, and something else Jiho was only beginning to understand. "Nari told me she made a human friend," Hyun said. "She's very excited, I noticed. She couldn't stop talking about it. She's growing up in a world we built, Jiho, a world where human and Valkyrin children can be friends, where mixed families are normal, where the war is just history." Hyun's voice carried emotion. "We did that. You and I, we had help. Lots of help, but we started it. That day you saved Nari. You started a chain of events that led here. Do you ever think about that?" Jiho considered. "Sometimes, but I try not to. If I had thought about consequences, I might not have acted. Sometimes you just have to do what's right and worry about consequences later. That's very human of you. Is it? I've met plenty of Valkyrin who think the same way." Hyun smiled. "True. Maybe we're more similar than we thought." A comfortable silence fell between them again. Then Hyun spoke more quietly. "Jiho, there's something I need to tell you. Something I've been thinking about for a while now." "What is it?" She turned to face him fully. "In Valkyrin culture, when someone saves your child's life twice, when they become part of your family, when they work beside you toward a common goal, these things create bonds. Deep bonds, I know. You explained that when I chose to stay." "Yes, but what I didn't explain is what those bonds mean to me personally. Not just culturally, but..." She paused, seeming to struggle with words. "I've grown to care for you, Jiho, more than as a colleague, more than as family even. I respect you. I admire you. And She took a breath. "I love you." Jiho felt like the ground had shifted beneath him. He stared at her, trying to process what she had just said. "You don't have to say anything," Hyun continued quickly. "I know this is complicated. We're from different species. We were enemies once. But I needed you to know how I feel. Life is too short and too uncertain to hide important truths." Jiho found his voice. "Hyun, I don't know what to say." "Then don't say anything. Just think about it." She started to turn away, but Jiho caught her hand. "Wait, I'm not saying I don't feel the same. I'm saying I'm surprised. I never thought someone like you would. I'm just a human soldier." "You're a leader, a commander. You're not just anything," Hyun said firmly. "You're the person who saw a child instead of an enemy. Who chose peace over loyalty to your species. Who took a plasma bolt meant for me without hesitation. You're extraordinary, Jiho Park." Jiho looked into her golden eyes. He had spent months working beside her, eating meals with her and Nari, talking late into the night about philosophy and hope. She had become important to him, essential even, but he hadn't let himself think about what that meant. "I care about you too," he said slowly. "I think I've been afraid to admit it, because it makes everything more complicated. Life is already complicated, Hyun said with a slight smile. Might as well be complicated together. Jiho laughed. Then, making a decision that felt both terrifying and right, he pulled her close and kissed her. She kissed him back, and for a moment nothing else mattered. Not the war. Not the peace. Not the differences between their species. Just two people who had found each other against all odds. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. So, Hyun said, does this mean you're willing to try this? Us, Jiho repeated, testing the word. Yes, I'm willing to try. Good, because Nari will be thrilled. She's been asking when we're going to make it official. She knew. Children always know. They see things adults try to hide. They walked back to the reception together, hand in hand. Some people stared. Others smiled. It would take time for everyone to accept this. A human and a Valkyran in a romantic relationship. But they had time. They had peace. That evening, Jiho and Hyun had dinner with Nari in their quarters. The three of them had developed routines. Nari told stories about school. Hyun discussed her work at the Peace Council. Jiho shared updates about his mediation cases. Uncle Jiho, Nari said carefully, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you and Mother together now? Like romantically? Hyun and Jiho exchanged glances. Then Hyun nodded at him to answer. Yes, Jiho said. If that's okay with you. Nari's face broke into a huge smile. Finally. I've been waiting forever for you two to figure it out. They all laughed. The conversation continued naturally as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. They were no longer just a commander, a human exile, and a child connected by circumstances. They were a family by choice. Later, after Nari went to bed, Jiho and Hyun stood on their private balcony, watching the ships come and go. Do you ever regret it? Hyun asked quietly. Giving up your old life? Jiho thought about Earth, about his old squad, about the career he had abandoned. Then he thought about Nari's laughter, about the peace they had built, about Hyun's hand in his. No, he said honestly, I miss some things. I miss some people. But I don't regret my choice. This is where I'm meant to be. With us? With you. Both of you. You're my home now. Hyun leaned against him. You know, when Nari was trapped under that rubble, I thought I had lost her forever. I thought I would spend the rest of my life regretting that I had to evacuate without her. That I had chosen duty over my daughter. You didn't have a choice. Maybe not. But you did. You could have walked past. You could have followed your orders.